The calling in the heart of a forgotten land, where the forests are thick and the sky often veiled in mist, there lies a convent. Abandoned for centuries, it stands like a ghost among the trees, silent, watchful, and cloaked in an unsettling quiet. The surrounding villagers whisper of it, though few dare to speak of what truly happened there. Even fewer dare to approach its crumbling walls. Legends say the convent was once home to devout sisters who had dedicated their lives to prayer and silence. But among them was one nun, an outsider to the order, who was different. She arrived mysteriously, sent from a distant abbey under strange circumstances. No one knew her real name. She was simply called Sister Magdalena. From the moment she stepped through the iron gates of the convent, everything changed. At first, it was subtle. Unexplained shadows flickered in the halls during evening prayers. The air in the chapel grew cold despite the warmth of the season. And there were the whispers, soft, incoherent at first, just on the edge of hearing. The other nuns dismissed them as the work of the mind, the product of long hours in meditation. But soon, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. One night, a sister, overcome by fear, confessed to hearing a woman's voice, calling her name in the dead of night. She claimed the voice belonged to Sister Magdalena, though she had not seen her for hours. The next morning, that same sister was found dead in her cell. Her face was twisted in terror, and her hands were clasped tightly around a rosary, but there was no sign of a struggle, no evidence of what had taken her life. This death shook the convent, and from that moment, the fear spread like wildfire. The whispers were no longer confined to the night, they followed the nuns wherever they went. In the chapel, in the courtyard, in their rooms, the voice of Sister Magdalena seemed to echo from the very walls of the convent. The prioress, desperate to maintain order, summoned a priest from the nearest village. He arrived with holy water and scriptures, prepared to banish whatever evil had taken root. But as he stood before the convent's altar, preparing to bless the building, a terrible sound filled the chapel, a low, guttural moan, as if the very stones were crying out. The priest faltered, clutching his cross, but it was too late. The shadows had grown long and dark, and from the corner of the chapel, a figure emerged. It was Sister Magdalena. Her face was pale, her eyes sunken, and her lips moved as though in prayer, though no words came. The priest, terrified, backed away, his hand trembling as he raised the cross. But she did not stop. As she approached, the temperature in the room dropped, and a feeling of suffocating dread filled the air. The nuns who witnessed this would later say it was as if death itself had entered the room. And then she spoke. Her voice was soft, but it carried throughout the convent as if the walls themselves were speaking. "You cannot save them," she whispered. "They are mine." The priest fled, never to return, and the prioress, faced with something far beyond her understanding, made a decision that would seal the fate of the convent. She excommunicated Sister Magdalena. The ceremony was conducted in secret, late at night, with only a handful of the most trusted nuns in attendance. Magdalena was led to the crypt beneath the convent, where the excommunicated were said to be buried alive as punishment for their sins. But Magdalena did not struggle. She went willingly, her head bowed in silent prayer. As they lowered her into the crypt and sealed the stone door, the prioress whispered a final prayer for mercy. But mercy never came. For days, the convent was silent. The whispers stopped, and the shadows returned to their rightful places. The sisters dared to hope that the evil had been vanquished. But soon, strange things began to happen. At night, they heard scratching beneath the floorboards, as though something was trying to claw its way out. Cold drafts swept through the halls, and the smell of decay began to permeate the air. And then, the whispers returned, louder, clearer than before. One by one, the nuns began to disappear. Some were found dead in their cells, their faces twisted in the same expression of terror as the first. Others simply vanished, leaving no trace behind. The prioress, consumed with guilt, ventured into the crypt one final time. She believed that if she could undo the excommunication, perhaps the curse would be lifted. But when she opened the stone door, she found the crypt empty. Sister Magdalena was gone. The convent was abandoned shortly after, and it has stood in ruins ever since. But the whispers never ceased. Those brave enough to venture near the convent claimed to hear them still, soft voices calling from the darkness, the unmistakable sound of a woman praying. Some say it is Sister Magdalena, still searching for those who wronged her. Others believe she is something far worse, a spirit bound by the darkest of forces, seeking to drag anyone who dares enter the convent into the abyss. The villagers know better than to go near, but sometimes, in the dead of night, a light can be seen flickering in the tower of the convent. Some say it's the lantern of a lost traveler, trying to find their way out. Others believe it's something far more sinister, a beacon, calling out to those who can still hear the whispers. The convent's gates remain sealed, but the whispers never stop. They are calling, waiting for someone to answer. But those who do, never, return. As the episode draws to a close, the fog thickens around the convent. The camera lingers on the darkened windows, and for a moment, just before the screen fades to black, there is movement, a shadow, barely visible, crossing in front of the window. The whispering grows louder, almost unbearable, before abruptly cutting off, leaving only silence.